Hey, what's going on, Periscope? Periscope, YouTube, live. Let's go. How are you guys doing? I got to tell you, had a few challenges logging on here tonight. Not sure why. But anyhow, welcome to the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone official, you guys. My name is Keith B Dixon, and this is supposed to be the 705 broadcast. But as you know, I don't know what it is. Sometimes with technology, when you give it a rest, I don't know, it seems like you lose your rhythm or your flow. I don't know. Is it me? Is it the technology? I have no idea. Um, I just got things to work. Anyway, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is a dual broadcast tonight. So I'm broadcasting out live on YouTube and Facebook, or YouTube and Periscope, and we're going to talk about shutter speed tonight. Real basic fundamental shutter speed, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm just going to walk you through. It's going to be a refresher. If you're super brand new, maybe it's going to help you to answer some questions, you guys. If you see me looking straight ahead, I can't see your comments down here at the bottom because guess what? Guess what, you guys? I got a lot going on over here, as you can see. I got a lot of stuff going on. So when you see me looking down, that's when you'll know. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone, you guys. I'm real official tonight, and let me see. Let me look down here and see who's in this scope tonight. Let me see names and locations, you guys. Names and locations. Let's go, and then we're gonna dive into a couple quick news-related photography, news-related items, and then we're gonna dive into this. Rodney from Savannah. What's up, Rodney? What's going on? There she is, Deb. Thank you. What up, though? Captain JJ from Jersey, all the way. What's going on, Commander Amber? What's up? All the way from the D. What's up, Marcus from New Orleans? Yes. DL Hustler, all the way from American Canyon. My man, what's going on? Michelle, what's up? All the way from Ohio. Yes, this is the Bomb Squad core community, you guys. You can find us on Facebook, Captain Joe. All you gotta do is a group search using Bomb Squad. So take that term Bomb Squad, you guys. Take that term Bomb Squad, add a hashtag to it, do a group search. You can find us, do a request to join. Let me give you guys, what's up, Barry? OG Barry, what's up? Let me give you guys an update on if you're brand new and you're super anxious to join the Bomb Squad, we're not going to be adding anybody until after the 8th of July. So after the 8th of July, we'll be adding, and we're going to come up with a brand new criteria. We're going to introduce that to the community as far as what membership really means. You guys, I am really looking for a top-notch group, not just a bunch of people getting together, you know, just kind of doing whatever. I really want us to not only serve our community, but serve communities outside of what we do. That's phase 2, you guys, is going out into the community and doing things for schools and people and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's going to be phase 2. Before we can do that, I got to know that we've got a solid community ourselves so we can make that happen. So that's going to be the second part of the second phase of the Bomb Squad. So right now we're doing what's called a roll call. So make sure you go in, and Zuri posted a message asking everybody to just kind of sound off with, I'm in the Bomb Squad, so we'll know. And I'm just keeping a running count. After the 8th, I'm going to start deleting people who don't respond. If I know that you're in the squad, for instance, maybe you're a captain and you just, whatever the case is, that's rare. Most of the captains are pretty active in the Bomb Squad page. But if there's somebody in there that I know, you know, definitely contributes, I'm not going to delete you. But if I haven't seen any postings or comments from you in the threads, we're just going to delete you out. That does not mean that you can't be in the squad. You just have to basically reapply, so to speak. So there it is right there. Before we get started on that, yes, Marcus, you're already in the squad. I think, Marcus, you're already in the squad. I think I may have seen you. If you're listed in the thread, don't worry about it. If you've already sounded off, if you haven't, make sure you do. And if I see somebody like Marcus or somebody that is frequenting the broadcast, I won't delete you. So those are kind of like the loose criteria. So if I see you in the broadcast and you're always commenting, morning motivation, I won't delete you. But we're looking for engagement, you guys, all day. Dr. Walter Sims, what's up? So there we go. All right, let's move on really quickly here, and we're going to talk about a little bit of news. Did you guys have any questions about? Did you have any questions about the membership to the Bomb Squad? Any questions about that before I move on? I'm looking over at the comments. What's up on the? Oh, we got a whole bunch of folks over here on. What's up, Mysterious Potato? It's lagging. Yeah, there's been a lot of challenges with logging on tonight, but I'm getting a healthy live stream. So I'm talking to the folks over here on YouTube. Okay, so if there's no questions, I'm going to move on. So on the YouTube side, I got Iris, Mysterious Potato, Joseph, Captain Joe, what's up? And let me see who else. Okay, let's keep it moving. We got some live viewers over here. Let's keep it moving, you guys. So here's what I got up for you next. We're going to talk about something real interesting I saw online earlier today, and I thought it was kind of interesting. You guys, this is F-Stop It Now. This is a daily that I put out. It comes out at 10:30 Pacific Standard Time, and as you guys know, I just wrote an article for PPA magazine. PPA is International, it's Professional Photographers of America. I'm not sure when it comes out, but basically I just outlined three major things you should be doing in your social media to kind of cover a topic. Social is a topic that is just all encompassing of a lot of different things. So as you can see, there's a technology section here, and there's also arts and entertainment. And if you scroll past the photos, there's a business or a business and social media section. Well, when I see things like 10 fundamental laws of social media marketing, that makes me want to click on it. Maybe it's clickbait, maybe it's not. But what I like to do in order to really get an understanding of what these articles mean is I look at them, and if I can understand what the header means, then guess what? I can understand what the article means. So the law of listening, the law of focus, the law of quality, the law of patience, the law of compounding, influence, value. These are all very valid points. These are some points that I would actually make, you guys. And I think this is spot on. Without even reading it, I can understand the value of this article. And you're going to see me talking a lot about social media because I believe that 80% of what we do in our business is marketing, sales and marketing. Without it, we can't exist. So it is an important aspect. Photography, like we're going to talk about tonight, these are things that you can master along the way. There's an application part. There's an education part. You have to take it on yourself to basically learn these things. But the thing that's going to pay the bills is not your camera, your great looking camera. It's your sales and marketing. That's what's going to pay the bills. So how you put that together is really going to depend on you. So I'm going to be talking a lot about that moving forward all the way out into 2018. You're going to see a heavy concentration of business and social because I think that's what a lot of us need. So thank you, Dr. Sims. I appreciate that. So let's go back because I want to show you something else that I thought was really interesting, you guys. And that was, this is a video. I'm not going to play the video because we gotta kind of move through this. And I'm also going to rebroadcast onto Facebook as well. But there's an article that was posted on Petapixel, and it talks about 7 tips for overcoming street photography awkwardness. And I thought this was I like this title because it kind of gets to the point. 7 tips for overcoming street photography awkwardness. It doesn't sound like clickbait. And I'm starting to see less and less of clickbait. So I want to assume that somebody out there is listening and saying, you know what, that's a good point. Let's not do that. So this is right away I clicked on this, you guys. And as I scroll down to the bottom, it says, even so, Goya does not stress that unleashed. And I'm just kind of reading because it's based on the video. There's nothing, I'm going to kind of fast forward through this. There's nothing wrong with talking to people. It is often the case that your intended subject will take your interest as a compliment. So when you're trying to sneak a photo, guess what? It looks like you're trying to sneak a photo in street photography. If you walk up to people and say, "Hey, I'm working on a project. I just, want to take a few photos of you, just kind of doing your day-to-day thing. Are you okay with that?" Most people are going to say yes, believe it or not. There are some cases where people are going to say, "Heck no, get out of my face." And I got to tell you, it's kind of painful, right? When people say stuff like that, it's really kind of painful. It kind of hurts your feelings, and it may even deflate you just slightly if you're doing street photography and you're trying to, accomplish something. So you got to get ready for that. The bad news is it's going to happen. The good news is it doesn't happen often. So it seems choppy. Yeah, there's, I got some connectivity issues. I'm not sure if it's, the actual connection, the software. I'm not really sure. So is anybody experiencing any lag on both sides, on the YouTube side and the Periscope side? Anybody experiencing any type of lag? Good. Okay. Because when I was trying to access the internet, you guys, it was really slow. So I want to make sure that I troubleshoot these issues so we can be as smooth as possible. Let's dive into part 2 of what we're going to talk about, and that is aperture, you guys. I'm going to, in some spots, take a deep dive here, but I'm also going to pause for questions. So if you get turned around or confused, that's okay. I'll slow down. You can ask some questions. I'll wait. You can always DM me, even call me in the mornings. That time works the best, and I'll work it out for you. So let's deep dive into this topic of shutter speed. Let me turn this on. See how that looks. Doesn't look good. Okay, you guys. Here's what we're gonna do. Let me do this. I'm just having all kinds of, technical things tonight. I just, you guys, hang on a second. Hang on just a second. Okay, here we go. Give me a quick second. I'm making a change on the fly, and this is live streaming at its finest. I got to tell you, what can go wrong will go wrong, you guys, and that's just the way it is sometimes. All right, you know what? You guys are probably looking at that little border right there. Let me do it like this here. Okay. Let's do this. Okay, I had to get that nasty little border thing out of there because it's going to run into the text. But anyway, it's going to run into the text here anyway. So tonight, I want to talk about aperture, you guys. And aperture, basically, let me see if I can, that ain't even looking right. I'll just turn it off. Okay, you guys, I'm going to turn off the actual visual because I don't know what's going on with this program. So aperture is basically just the opening inside of your lens. And that opening is measured, and it's measured by something called an f-stop. The f-stop is either going to open big or small. Big numbers are generally like 2.8, 3.3, 4.5, 7.1. Those are the different types of apertures, openings. And as the opening gets bigger, the number actually gets smaller. I totally messed that up. As the opening gets bigger and more light comes in, the number gets smaller. So we go from 22 to 2.8, and that's a way to remember it. So if I confused you, let me apologize and correct myself by saying, if we start at f22 and we go down to 2.8, we're basically opening up our aperture as big as it can go, 2.8, 1.8, 1.4, whatever the case may be. So anybody confused about that so far? It's the opening, and you can see the definition there. There's the physical definition, but it's just the opening inside of your lens that lets in a certain amount of light depending on what f-stop you're using. So if you're using a really big f-stop like 22 or 16, it's going to be a pinhole. And then as you basically decrease that number, and I'm going to explain it like this, as you decrease that number, you start to go down to 5, 6, 2.8, 1.8, 1.4, if you're lucky enough to have a 1.4. those cost a lot of money, then that hole inside the lens is going to get super big. Are we okay on that explanation? Is anyone confused at this point? If you are confused, I want you to put in a Wi-Fi. You shouldn't be. Put a little pressure on. But if you are, throw in a Wi-Fi for me. Anybody confused? Thanks for the hearts and the shares, you guys. I appreciate it. Okay, good. No one's confused. Don't be shy. Okay, aperture controls two aspects, you guys. The amount of light entering the camera, I kind of mentioned that already. And watch this. This is an important one, you guys. The amount of light entering the camera and the depth that you would see in your photograph. Depth meaning how much you can see from the camera out to infinity. So that's what your aperture is controlling. And you can do artistic things with your aperture by just using a shallow depth or depth of field. If you're using shallow depth, and I'm going to show you an example later on. If you're using shallow depth, what you can do is maybe use driving lines, circles, textures, lights, color. You can use a lot of things to basically drive composition, but the one big thing that you can use is depth of field in a scene. So you can use that to actually shape your composition. And one of the ways you can do that is you could use like a 2.8 or a 1.8 and basically blur out the background and put your subject in focus. And now you are controlling depth of field. So this is a very important tool. It not only helps with your exposure in a major way, but it also helps you to direct your composition. So it controls these two major aspects. And as long as you know that, you're going to be in good shape. Now, if you're using a super fast shutter speed, like 1/3000, and you have a really big aperture, like let's say 16, then you're going to get a little bit of light because everything's going to be moving fast, and the light entering the camera is going to have to squeeze through a little tiny pinhole, and I'll show you some examples in just a second. You're going to get a dark exposure. But if you're using 1/3000 and you're using a really small f-stop, which gives you a bigger opening like 2.8, 3.3 or somewhere around those lines, then you're going to get a lot of light coming in. So you're just basically using inverse functions on your camera to create an exposure, mainly the shutter speed and the aperture. Now, I'm just trying to get the slide to change here. Okay, there we go. Boy, I tell you guys, I'm struggling tonight on the technology. Okay, here we go. So, as you can see from number 1, there is a maximum opening and a minimum opening, a maximum and a minimum. So the bottom would represent an f22, f16. I'm speculating here. I don't know the exact f-stop for that, but the ideal here is to show you that a pinhole represents a really big f-stop, and then at the top that could probably be something like 1.8, 1.4. That's your maximum opening. Now here's a tip: f-stops are generally 2 stops. The sharpest f-stop in your camera is generally 2 stops from the maximum opening. So if you're at 1.8, you go 1.8, 2.8. 4, that's where you're around 4, 4.5, somewhere around there. Your lens is going to be real crispy, right? It's going to be dope. If you've got a 2.8 lens, then you're just going to go 2 stops, 4, 5, 6, and that lens is going to perform very well. Also, what I've found too is generally around 7.1, 8 lenses perform really well. Now, that all depends on the quality of the lens and the light that you are using it in. Super important, you guys. Super important. Now I'm going to pause for some questions. If you guys have them, now is the time. Are there any questions that you guys want to ask? Any questions? I'm going to pause for a second so that you can ask away. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Any questions? All right. Let me look over here on the YouTube side. Okay. What's up, TE? What's going on? All right, cool. I have a problem with ISO. Okay, go ahead and pop that question in for me. And as I'm gonna pause for a second so we can deal with ISO, because ISO is basically a part of what I call the trinity of pillars in your exposure. It's important. So let me see that, Tim. Go ahead and drop that question in for me. And as I'm gonna zoom on to this next slide. And here's what I want you guys to know about this particular slide. This is out of order in terms of the shutter speed. So not a big deal. And as you can see, it goes from 60 to 40 and then 50. So that's an error. But I like to use this slide because it shows the actual shutter speed in relationship to grayscale. I can't get it right with the aperture. My light is sometimes off. How can I you want to correct that? So here's an easy way of using your ISO along with your other combinations. If you walk outside and it's super bright out, use the smallest ISO possible, like 100 or 200, depending on your camera model. If you're shooting a Canon, you can do 100, and on some of the pro bodies for Nikon, you can do 100 as well. But Nikon's ISO is typically around 200. So outside in the light, 200. If you're inside, you want to hover around 400 if you're shooting a prosumer camera. If you're shooting a consumer camera, stick with 400, because once you start going beyond that, you're going to start to introduce signal noise into your photo. If you're using a prosumer camera, then you can probably get away with using like a 640 to 800. Once you go beyond that, you're going to start to introduce grain or noise into the photograph. Now, here's the thing. It's not really introducing grain per se. It's introducing a noise signal that emulates grain onto your photograph so that it emulates what film ISO did back in the day. So we call that noise. You can't get it out of your picture unless you soften the photograph, which makes it look painterly like, which is kind of borderline. I'm going to say could be artistic as opposed to editorial, and that could be a problem if you're shooting a job. So avoid that at all costs. All right. Now, I want you to look at this grayscale. Remember, there's an error over here on this side, but look at the grayscale and notice how we go from dark to light. So with your super fast shutter speed, and we're going to say fast in comparisons to the 1/30, you're not letting in as much light. But if you look over at the photograph, you've got good saturation of color. As you slow down your shutter speed, you start to introduce more light into your camera. And guess what? Guess what? You start to basically mute out or undersaturate the color, and then eventually it just kind of goes white. That's what your shutter speed is doing. Now, here's where it gets a little trippy. In this next slide, I want you to think about this carefully, because shutter speeds are always based on time. And I'm bringing this up because I want you guys to understand how the shutter speed works as it relates to the aperture. It's really important. And to be honest with you, it's really hard to talk about one without the other. I mean, you can do it, but it's really hard. As you're slowing down your shutter speed, you're always going to add more light, which means you have to go back the other way on your aperture. You have to go back the other direction. So if you're slowing down to a 30th, 1/30th, you've got to go back on your aperture to something bigger so that you can equalize the light that's coming through. If not, if you're outside, you're going to just have a whole bunch of light coming through and basically have an underexposure or an overexposure. So the same is true if you're at 125, as I mentioned earlier, your shutter speed is really fast, and then you're going super small on or super big on your aperture, so fast and big just doesn't equal. And maybe that, that's a new way of thinking about it. Big and fast, when we think of things that are big and fast, it's kind of like, no, small and fast works better, right? So that's a way of thinking about it. Big and fast doesn't really go together in a camera. Now, There are some circumstances where you can pull some things off by maybe changing your ISO or doing some things. I don't know, I haven't played with that yet, but doesn't really work well together. Okay, now I want to talk about something important, and that's depth of field, you guys. Depth of field is really important because depth of field not only helps with your exposure, it helps you to add creativity. It's a layer of creativity that you can use in your photograph to draw attention to a subject. And that's what's beautiful about it. And in this definition, or in this bullet point, depth of field, DOF, we call it DOF sometimes, is the range at which subjects are in focus at various distances. So if one of the things that I like to do, and I'm going to show you this to really understand depth of field, is I like to put my hand up to my face like this. And if you look around the palm, if you look out to the peripheral on your hand, you're going to notice that you can see the background, but you can't see the foreground. Well, the camera emulates your eyes. So guess what? If you're either going to focus up close or far away. So if I'm looking here, then I can't really see anything because I can see around the outside. But if I change my focus, I can't see on the outsides, but I can see the palm of my hand. And that's how your lens works. So that's a good way of thinking about it. And let me show you for a side profile. So my hand is here. If it's up close and I'm focused at my palm, you'll notice that you can't see out of the peripheral of your vision. It's blurry. But if I focus on the outsides, I can't see the middle of my palm. That's exactly how your lens works. That's exactly how your aperture works. It emulates the eye. And just so you know, the 50 millimeter lens is true to how we see as human beings. So there's some trivia or some answers for you guys. The 50 millimeter lens, and this is why it's so important, is true to what we see with our human eye. So if you want to get an accurate angle of view of just about anything you're photographing, use a 50 millimeter lens or 50 millimeters on your camera. Is this making sense for you guys? Is this making sense? All right. So, here's the point I want to make. Another point. Depth of field changes as your aperture changes. So, if you're going from, let's say, I'm going to use f16 because, are you guys, don't want a Wi-Fi if you're familiar with the Sunny 16 rule. The Sunny 16 rule, if it sounds familiar to you, if you're familiar with it, I want you to throw in a Wi-Fi. What's up, Dieter? Dieter, my man, Dieter. Let me look over here on the YouTube side, see if they got any questions. Thank you for watching, you guys. Okay, so the Sunny 16 rule basically states that no matter where you are on a completely sunny day, if you plug in 1/160 at f16 with a 100 ISO, you're going to get a perfect exposure. It's true. You can use 200 over 1/200 at a 200 ISO. On a sunny day, you're going to get a perfectly exposed photo. This is fundamental photography, basic 101, you guys. This is definitely true. And I would challenge you to go outside on a perfectly sunny day and plug those settings into your camera. The reason why I gave you 2 is because it depends on the camera model. But go outside, and this is the Sunny 16 rule. Anywhere in the complete sun, you could be in the desert, plug in those numbers. 1/60 at 1/60, you could probably go, no, I don't know if you could use 1/60. So 1/160th at a, let's say, I'm going to say 200 at f16 will give you a great exposure on a sunny day. You could always do 200, 200, and 16. I mean, there's a lot of combinations there. So, okay. So the Sunny 16 rule: if you on a sunny day, if you go out and you plug in 1/160 as a shutter speed at f16 with a 100 ISO, you're going to get a perfectly exposed picture. You could also plug in 1/100 at 100 ISO at f/16 and get a perfectly exposed photograph. It all depends on the camera manufacturer. So try that out for size. It's a starting point. It's not an absolute. It's a starting point, and it's always going to depend on the camera manufacturer. But that's the Sunny 16 rule. All right. Remember that chart I showed you for shutter speed, you guys? Well, here it is for aperture. And here's how it reads, you guys. As you basically open up your aperture, or you can say, you'll hear a lot of photographers say, hey, open up a little bit, right? That's what they mean typically. Either you're going to slow down your shutter speed, and this is slang. I probably shouldn't even be talking about this, because if you're not familiar or strong in this, it could confuse you. So I'm going to avoid that. So forget about that. This is the way I'm going to say it until you guys are fluid. If you basically decrease your aperture from 11 down to 2.8, you are going to be letting in a lot of light. You guys see that? If you increase your aperture from 2.8 to 16, you're going to be letting in less light. The thing that you have to know is between each one of these numbers is one stop of light. This is an important statement right here. 2.8 to 5.6 is one stop of light. 2.8 to 8 is two stops of light. And the reason why I'm saying it like that is because as you progress in photography and you start to get into advanced lighting, we create ratios based on stops of light. So we'll do a 2-to-1 ratio, a 3-to-1 ratio. A 3-to-1 ratio would be easy. 2.8, 5.6, 1, 5.6 to 8, 2, 8 to 11. That's 3 stops of light. We're going to have a 3-to-1 ratio. Now I'm simplifying this, but that's how ratios work in the simplest form. Now I'm not going to go into that a whole lot more than that, but I want you guys to understand that. And when you're doing that, you're creating a lot of contrast or drama in your lighting. Now, when you're at f/8, you're going to have what we call depth of field. So imagine this. Now I got to go off the deep end right here, just really quick, you guys, for people that are on here that are advanced. We have depth of field at 8, but we have less light. So when you photograph something at f/8 and you're using flash or electronic light, you're getting less light through the aperture, but you're getting more depth of field. And that's where things get a little tricky, because you have to start doing or doing what we call adding light, or creating an additive light situation. So as you basically decrease or that aperture number and you go down to 5.6, you don't need as much light, because now if you go down to 5.6, everything starts to blur. Here's the trade-off. Everything starts to blur because remember, we're letting in more light. Remember the palm and looking beyond or looking at the palm. Remember that example? We're letting in more light, more ambient light. And you know what? If you do it right, you're going to mix in the ambient and the flash together, and it's going to look natural. Now, I know you guys are probably saying, what the heck? If you're super brand new, right? That was for our super advanced people. As you slow down your shutter speed and you're using electronic light, you're going to start to mix in ambient and flash, and you're going to get this image that looks like it was all natural light. And I'm going to tell you, that's when you are rolling with perfection. Yes. So it gets a little deep, and that's why you have to understand what these stops of light means and how they function from one f-stop to the other. So as we go down to 2.8, we've got a ton of light coming in, like a lot, right? That means that we've got to use a faster shutter speed, and we can still mix light at 2.8. We're just going to have like a super shallowy depth of field. And let me see if I got some examples for you here. I don't have any examples. I thought I did. Okay. You guys, there it is. Amazing, right? Technology at its finest. So I'm going to go back to my shutter speed example, because you know what? Technology can't trump me. I trump technology. And I'm going to show you as we slow down our shutter speed. Remember, 15, these numbers are basically cutting in half. And this is where it also gets kind of tricky. Every time we stop down our shutter speed, we're cutting light in half. Every time we move up, we're doubling. You notice how the 15 goes to 30? We're doubling the light. We're doubling, halving. Now, I want you guys to just key in on that. We're doubling or halving light. These are just markers that I'm placing inside your mindset. So when we talk about something more complicated, it's going to ring a bell for you. So as you decrease your shutter speed, it cuts the light in half to let more in. So 30, 15, and then we go to our other one. So here, 60th or 30th. Now I know 1/60th isn't half of 125. I get that, but it actually works out if you add decimal points. It actually works. So all they're doing is rounding these numbers so that they're even. And then same here, half of 250 is 125. Now, if we go back to our aperture, it's even more trickier, but these are actually halves. These are halves of fractionally halves of, so we got 16, 11, 8, 5, 6, and 2, 8. Okay. Keith, I'm confused. I want you guys to throw up a Wi-Fi. Let's start entertaining some questions, because I threw a lot of information at you. Don't be shy or scared or nervous. Keith, I'm confused. Okay, where at, Tories? Throw it a question. Let me look over here on the Facebook side. I mean the YouTube side. All right. I know we really did go off the deep end here. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that we cover the most fundamental all the way out, because there's people on here that really understand this, and hopefully they can pick up something different. So I'm weaving in and out, you guys. Tories, what are you confused about? You can put in like the topic, and I think I could probably what's going on, there he is. I can navigate from there. Anybody else with a question or confusion? If you guys are just tuning in, Keith B Dixon, commercial photographer all day. I'm not holding on, really. I don't know the right question to ask yet. Okay. I'm going to take it from the top. I am going to take it from the top. All right, let's roll. Let's roll from the top right here. Okay, you guys. And if you get a question, I'll stop. This information is everything, must know stuff. Yeah, it is. Yes. 8 to 11 is one stop. One stop of light, one stop. Yes, that is true. When should you start working in third stops? Great question. Okay. Third stops are like different. So you would go from 2/8 to 3/3. You would go 5, 6, 7, 1, somewhere around there. Now, I'm going to say that if you're trying to get really precise with your light, that's when it's going to make a difference. Because your camera may perform really well between 2/8 and 5/6. So 7/1 would be in between 5/6. Or if you go, I said 3/3, 3/5. So 2/8, 3/5. 3/5 might be a really good aperture, especially if you're shooting a 1/8 lens. You never know. That's why you have to test. So you want to make sure that you understand what that's going to give you in terms of depth. typically when I'm photographing a situation, I'll shoot at 4.5, which is one of the third stops, you guys. Yeah, you have to, because this stuff is really, you know what it is. You study it and you kind of get to know it, and then when you get out in the field, if you're not really practiced on it in terms of applying it, it doesn't work. And that's the challenge that people have in photography. They understand it, and then they get out there and they're like, oh my God, what do I do? The exposure's not coming out. They panic. They're under pressure, and that's typically what happens. So you got 4.5 in between. That's one of my favorite f-stops, 2.8, from 2.8 to 4.5, and it just depends on the lens that I have. 7.1, those are apertures that I typically shoot with. 11, so 10. When I'm photographing interiors, I actually shoot f10. So that's that. I mean, and that's because that's where the lens performs well. So that's something that you have to kind of fall into, knowing what you're going to get in terms of sharpness from edge to edge, or you have to know how that slice of focus is going to work for your subject as well. There is a slice of focus when you start narrowing down your f-stopping for that shallow depth. If you look at it closely, you'll see there's a slice of focus that works for the image. All right, now I'm going to exit out of there, take you over to shutter speed, and we're going to recap on that. 115 to 30th. Remember, the light cuts in halves or doubles, and that's what I want you guys to walk away with here. Cuts in halves or doubles. You're either going to let in more light or less light. When you slow down your shutter speed, you're letting in less light. I'm sorry, you're letting in more light. When you speed up your shutter speed, you're letting in less light. As you slow down, you introduce motion blur, and if you think about this, if you were to slow down your shutter speed and then use a super big aperture, you're not only going to get motion blur, but you're going to get shallow depth of field as well. All right, you guys, that was a lot. That was a lot. If I was brand new to photography, I might be a little scared. Did this help you guys? If this helped you, if this helped you gain a better understanding, let me know. If it confused you, let me know. Yes. Listen to it minus the mistakes. All right. And by the way, you guys, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you don't be scared. This is easy stuff. All right, fantastic. I'm just looking over at your comments, you guys, if you see me looking down. Thank you, Iris, Michelle. YouTube is smooth, huh? All right, fantastic. All right. So there it is right there. Hey, if you just tuned in, you're watching a replay, Keith B Dixon, we're talking about camera shutter speed, and we're talking about all the technology things that happened today. Oh my God. Do you shoot much in the dark at clubs? Loving the D300. Yeah, that's my favorite camera. Yeah, I do. I don't shoot in clubs anymore, but I do shoot in low light situations a lot. And one of the things that I don't do, or I try to avoid, is bumping my ISO up, because it almost destroys the quality of the picture. Even, I mean, you can use like a D4, D5, and you can bump it up with a flash and not miss a beat. But not everybody owns those type of cameras, because they're about $6,000 for just the body. So the thing that I'm going to say is, once you learn kind of where your exposure is really sweet, like if you're in a low light situation, you got to have a 2.8 lens. I mean, there's just no way around that part. You got to rock a 2.8 lens, and it's got to be a pro lens, because they do make some consumer lenses with 2.8 on them. And the thing that you have to do is you've got to have that 2.8 and make sure that depth of field is not going to be an issue. And then bump your ISO up. I'm going to say no more than 800 if you're using a prosumer camera. 640 is typically the sweet spot. And I'm referring to Nikon, and Canon is not far behind. Yes. And then if you have a flash, you're going to be in luck. And then if you bounce your flash backwards, if you have ceiling, if your ceiling height is really good, like 7'5", 8 feet, or you're close to a wall, you can always bounce your light. You're going to get the perfect exposure, 2.8 with a 640 ISO on a basically a consumer grade camera, using a shutter speed of 180. Or even 1/60, you're going to get a great photograph. I do it all the time. The Gary Fong. Yeah, I don't allow my crew to use any modifiers. Like, anybody that's working on my crew is not allowed whatsoever. Matter of fact, I have a 16-year-old girl. Her dad works on my crew, and we'll let her come out and shoot. She doesn't even use it. It's just a matter of how you understand and see light. And I've trained her enough to know that she knows when she's looking at a situation, she can make it happen. And I guarantee you, if I put this girl's images right by mine, you wouldn't know the difference, because I've trained her that much. And I'm going to tell you, it's what teenagers, they absorb information differently. So, you guys, I'm just not a big believer in modifiers at all for the flash, unless you're doing something creative, you're trying to direct light or whatever the case is. Then I'm going to say yes, do it. But it can be faster, but it's just one more thing to manage. Any other questions? Any other questions before we dive out of here, you guys? I'm going over to Facebook Live, like probably within 10 minutes. I'm going to rebroadcast this, hopefully without any errors. And we're going to make it happen. Welcome to live streaming. This is how it goes down for real, you guys. Any other parting questions before we get up out of here? My name is Keith B Dixon. This is the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone. The official start time for the broadcast is 7:05. We came on a little tardy tonight. I want to apologize for that. I don't use flash. Yeah. Sometimes you can use existing light. I'm on YouTube now. I'm going to rebroadcast on Facebook. So yeah. Sometimes using flash, you've got good ambient light or stage lights that you can use. That's great. You make great photos that way. So if I have that, I'll do it both ways. But my signature for my event photography is to use flash. All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in. This is the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone. You guys, I will see you on Facebook if you're coming over. The Facebook crowd is completely different. You guys, thank you. Thank you always. Thank you. And I will see you in about 10 or 15 minutes on Facebook Live. Later.